He glanced at the name stitched on her chest, then let his gaze drop to the worn edges of her shoes. A thin smile crept across his face. To Adrian Kingsley, the server standing in front of him wasn't human. She was scenery, a prop in a performance meant to prove he was smarter, richer, untouchable. By placing his order in a dead regional dialect, he believed he could reduce her to embarrassment, especially in front of his fiancée. He believed power protected him from consequences. He was wrong. What Adrian didn't know was that the woman steadying his wineglass carried more knowledge than he'd ever earned, and the single sentence she was about to speak wouldn't just quiet the room, it would collapse the world he'd built. This is a story about pride choking on its own venom. The Hawthorne Room, Manhattan's most guarded dining space, smelled of truffle oil, vintage Cabernet, and money that had been compounding for generations. For Nadia Carter, it smelled like panic. She adjusted the stiff collar of her uniform shirt, too snug across her shoulders. She'd bought it a year earlier when she still believed waiting tables was a temporary detour. It was 8:52 p.m. The dinner rush was peaking. Crystal clinked against porcelain in a rhythm as precise as an orchestra. Laughter floated through the air, each syllable worth more than Nadia's hourly wage. Table 2 wants the duck replated. Table 6 says the champagne isn't cold enough. Move. The voice belonged to Grant Holloway, the floor supervisor. Grant worshipped efficiency and despised pauses. He hovered near the wine station, scanning the room like a general watching enemy lines. On it, Nadia replied, calm by force of habit. She lifted a tray of flutes, ignoring the fire in her feet. She'd been upright for nearly 12 hours. Her shoes, cheap imitations bought on sale in Queens, were peeling at the sole. Every step through the slick kitchen floor let dampness seep in. Nadia Carter was 29. To the guests, she was functional invisibility. The hand that refilled glasses, the voice that recited specials, the body that absorbed disrespect without protest. No one noticed the faint scar near her eyebrow from the night she'd collapsed at work months earlier. And no one could have guessed that 3 years ago, Nadia had been a PhD candidate in historical linguistics at Oxford, selected for a fellowship so competitive it changed careers overnight. Until the call came at 3:30 a.m., her mother's aneurysm, emergency surgery. Rehab cost that vaporized savings, grants, dreams. Academia had offered sympathy, not flexibility. Nadia withdrew. The world moved on. Now she wore a bow tie and answered to Miss from men who confused arrogance with intellect. She approached table 9 with her practiced expression, warm, forgettable, safe. The couple seated there carried quiet wealth. The woman was poised, silver dress catching candlelight. The man sat rigid, confident, eyes sharp with entitlement. Adrian Kingsley. The name had traveled through the staff like static. Private equity, tech acquisitions, obscene money. Nadia placed the menus down. Adrian's eyes flicked from her name tag to her shoes. 3 seconds. Judgment delivered. Good evening, she began. Welcome to the Hawthorne. May I? He cut her off without looking up. Parlats. The word dropped like a blade. It wasn't modern French. It wasn't even conversational. It was Old Occitan, a language extinct for centuries. The woman beside him shifted uncomfortably. Nearby tables went quiet. In the open kitchen, the head chef stopped mid-motion. Adrian leaned back, enjoying himself, waiting for confusion, waiting for her to shrink. Something inside Nadia snapped open. The scholar, the woman who once debated syntax across centuries, the part of herself she'd buried under bills and exhaustion stood up. She made a decision. She would not disappear. She answered him in flawless Old Occitan, not only responding, but correcting him, explaining his misuse of form, then seamlessly transitioning into formal academic French, clarifying the menu, the oysters, their origin. Her voice was calm, surgical. The room froze. Adrian's expression drained. His fiancée covered her mouth, not in horror, but disbelief. Nadia finished gently. Language is not a parlor trick, she said. It carries history, suffering, power, and it deserves respect. Silence. Adrian ordered the rest of the meal in clipped modern French. He barely ate. His confidence never returned. When the check came, tension lingered like smoke. Nadia processed the payment, heart racing now that the adrenaline faded. She expected termination, expected punishment for speaking. When she returned, Adrian signed sharply, stood, and then froze. "My card," he said loudly. Too loudly. "Where is my card?" Eyes turned. "She took it," he snapped, pointing at Nadia. "Call the police." Fear hit hard. Everything. Her rent, her mother's care, her fragile stability, teetered. Then a calm voice cut through the room. "That won't be necessary." An older man stood from a nearby table. Silver hair, tailored suit, authority that didn't need volume. Charles Hawthorne, owner, financier, the name on the door. He asked Adrian to check his pockets. The card appeared. The accusation collapsed, and so did Adrian. Charles dismissed him permanently, quietly, legally, completely. Then he turned to Nadia. "You corrected me once," he said later in his office. "At a conference in London. I never forgot." He offered her a directorship at a new cultural institute, a salary that changed everything, full medical care for her mother, because she spoke, because she refused erasure. 6 months later, Nadia stood beside her mother's hospital window, sunlight pouring in. Her mother was stronger, speaking again. Nadia had her life back. She'd been invisible once, never again. If you enjoyed this story about power, dignity, and finding your voice, subscribe to the channel. Stories like this are coming every week.